This Elementalist build is very easy to learn, very easy to get into, while still dealing amazing amounts of damage, having actually decent amount of utility in the kit as well, and the best of all, it's very fun to play. So if you're interested, be sure to watch the whole video about this amazing Tempest build. As always, special shout out to all my supporters on YouTube, Twitch and Patreon that help me keep the lights on. And now let's jump right in. So this build is part of my series where I talk about low intensity, low effort builds. Be sure to check out the link in the description so that you can see all the class and low intensity builds that I already have out. But now let's start with the gear. So for the gear, it's quite straightforward. You run full Berserker with Rune of the Scholar. If you don't have Ascended gear, I have a link in the description to how you optimize it with the exotic gear. But for full Ascended gear, you go just full Berserker with Superior Rune of the Scholar. And if you can afford infusions, you would go with Power Infusions. But of course, this is a low intensity build, so it's not that impactful. For your weapons, as you can see, we want to run Scepter Dagger. And on your Dagger, you want to have Accuracy Sigil, and on your Scepter, you want to have Force Sigil, just for the most amount of damage. The trinkets, again, full Berserker. And for your relic, you want to go Relic of the Fireworks, it's just the best option. For food and consumables, we have to go for a different food than usual, so we have to go for Blades of Coq au Vin with Salsa for the Ascended version because of the lifesteal, of course, it helps a lot, but also because you need power and the precision to actually crit cap. That's important. So if you can't afford the Ascended version, you would go with Steak with Winterberry sauce, craft it or buy it. If you want to go for even cheaper option, you can also go for Blades of Truffle Steak. Those two are completely the same in terms of aggressive stats. And for utility consumables, you would always go with Superior Sharpening Stones or something that gives similar amounts of stats. By the way, if you want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe. But now to the traits. So for the traits, you want to run Fire, Air, and Tempest. Fire just gives you a lot of damage buffs, more power, more cooldown reduction in fire, and more damage increase. You get some passive burning and burning increase, that's not that crazy. You get more power, and you get just some damage increase. So overall, Fire, right line, really straightforward, more damage. Then you have Air, that's the bread and butter of this build. You get some crit chance increase, you get more damage, you get even more ferocity and cooldown reduction, you get more ferocity based on your position, that's really nice, you get more damage, and you get, that's the important one here, ferocity when you swap to air for 5 seconds, and your cooldown is recharged when you crit while you're not in air. So the cooldown of swapping to air is decreased to 0 while you crit and you're not in air. That's really helpful because that lets you swap after you did your overload to another element, recharge with this trait, and swap instantly back to do the overload again, because the most important skill by far in this whole kit is overload air. It's really easy to play, you just cast it, and when you are done, you swap to another element and get another overload air out after that. But we will get to the rotation in detail in a few minutes, but now let's continue with the traits. So Tempest gives you just very nice sustain, and the overload axis, of course. So this is important on Stable Conduit. You get a shocking aura when you finish your air overload. That's the most important one and the only one that I actually use. Why is that important? Because you actually get a damage buff when you get an aura, 10% damage increase for 5 seconds. This is really good, and that helps a lot. Just get more damage out. Of course, you also get nice might application to your allies as well with your shout skills, but that's not too important. You also get some concentration and some protection, but that's not that crazy. And this is really nice because you now get a damage buff when you successfully complete an overload, and this is for 7 seconds, so that means that you actually can upkeep that 100% of the time. It's actually crazy. It's a really, really high amount of damage that you get with this. And your singularity delay reduction is very helpful as well. What does that mean? That means if you swap to another element, you get a cooldown on actually using your overload. And this cooldown is now like 4 seconds, something like that. If you don't have this trait, the cooldown is higher, it's like 6 seconds. So that means that this trait actually helps you to spam your overload in the air more frequently, and therefore it's not only used for the 25% damage increase, but it's also helping you to spam the skill more often, so it's an even higher DPS increase. Keep that in mind, it's really, really good. So this is the whole traits and how this build is played already. So you just want to upkeep the buff of the 10% and the overload buff all the time of the 25%. So what skills do we use to achieve that? We use Rush the Pioneer Way, we use Feel the Burn, Arcane Blast, and Signal of Fire just for the passive crit chance, and then we use Glyph of Elementalist for more DPS. You can swap the Arcane Blast, that's just a single target DPS, very easy, no cast time. So you can swap that, for example, to Arcane Wave if you need more CC. If you want to go a little bit more, so to say, higher effort than this low intensity build, then you would go with Glyph of Storms. It's a little bit more damage, but it's a little bit more, so to say, active gameplay. And then you can, of course, also go for Lightning Flash if you need a teleport for whatever reason, or if you need more protection, stability, even a stun break and barrier, Armor of Earth is really reliable. So this is really interchangeable. Don't worry, swap to what is actually necessary. You can even go for a stun break and stability if you need that for your party. So swap around what is necessary. Don't swap the Signet of Fire, that's very important, but you can swap the Arcane Blast very freely. It's just a DPS increase, but you can just swap to what is necessary. And Feel the Burn you should probably have always on the board just to upkeep the aura buff and just helps with damage as well. You can of course wash the pain away, use it to a Condic Lens for healing, but you can of course go for other healing skills, it's not important. The Cliff of Elementals is just a very nice DPS increase, especially in fire, but of course if you need for example Rebound to help your party, that can help as well, so swap around if necessary. Your most important and the only really weapon skills that you want to use is the Air 2, because it's an instant cast, the Ride the Lightning, which is also a very strong skill that is almost instant cast, so to say, and then Overload Air, that's the crazy one. And like I said, this is a low intensity build, so when I start with the rotation, I will start with a very, very low effort rotation that only takes 1 or 2 key presses to actually perform on it, and slowly increase it to, let's say, maybe like 5 key presses that you do in a single cycle of the rotation to actually get even more DPS out. So you can slowly modular increase how much difficulty you want to have with this build. Then you have a nice CC skill on the 5 skill if you need it, and you don't swap in Earth ever in this build rotation. But if you need CC, you can of course do so for the 4 skill here. In water, you can use the healing skills in 3 and 5, and the 4 skill as an instant aura can also help. And in fire, you can use all your fire skills except the auto attack for some really nice damage. Even the auto attack does some nice damage, but typically you want to swap to air back whenever it's possible. Let's talk about the rotation now. So the core concept of the rotation is that you always use your air overload, swap to fire attunement, swap back to air attunement because you instantly get a crit, even if you don't use a fire skill, because the air attunement overload is still up and hitting the enemy with 100% crit chance, so you get the crit and swap back to air. You wait until you get the overload, use the overload, swap to water attunement, and go back instantly to air attunement, use the overload again, and repeat this process. Be aware that you can't dodge or swap attunements while casting overload air, so don't do that. Always finish casting the air overload. For the opener, I would start by casting the Glyph of Elementals in fire. Before you enter the combat, it's just more damage that you get this way, and you instantly cast your air overload. And while you do that, you should use your Feel the Burn and Arcane Blast and Lightning Strike, so all those 3 skills are instant cast. You can just use that while you cast the overload air. And as soon as the overload is completed, swap to fire attunement and immediately back to air attunement. That's the opener. And after that, you follow the loop that I just mentioned. So always cast the auto attack until the air overload is ready, cast the air overload, when it's done, swap to fire attunement, immediately back to air attunement, use the auto attack there, cast the air overload when it's ready, when it's finished, swap to water attunement, and immediately back to air. And that's about it. That's the whole process. If you then want to increase the difficulty a bit, or the damage output rather, then you just use Lightning Strike and Light the Lightning whenever you are in air attunement and are off cooldown. You can then increase the difficulty a little bit more by always pressing Feel the Burn, Arcane Blast, and Flame Barrage, which is the Glyph's flip over skill, off cooldown while you are in air attunement. All of the skills are again instant cast, so it's very easy to just add them without a lot of problems. And then the last, so to say, highest level of difficulty, but the most amount of damage output would be just to use all the fire skills while you are switching to fire as well. So you would use your Dragon's Tooth, your Phoenix, your Ring of Fire, and the Fire Grab before you swap back to air. That's it. That's the rotation. It's really easy, even on the highest level. It's not that hard to play. It's very fun to play. Feels very elementalistly, and is, I would say, very strong as well. I hope you enjoy this build as much as I do. If you do, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks again to all my supporters on YouTube, Twitch, and Patreon. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope to see you all in the next video.